to the Culture Books podcast. My name's Sheridan and I'm joined in the pod with...
Hello, it's John. That was a very low energy intro there, Sheridan.
I haven't finished it.
Okay, alright.
We're on episode 13, which is the nearly final chapter of Consider Phlebas by Ian M. Banks.
Yes.
And it's the 28th of July, 2022.
What's this podcast all about?
It is about the culture books.
Yes. So I guess what we're saying is, if you've never listened to this podcast before, go back to the prelude episode for Consider Phlebas where we get you started.
Yes.
And then buy a copy of Consider Phlebas by Ian M. Banks and read along and listen along.
I think you really do need to read along.
Yeah.
Unless you've read it before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to a Lord of the Rings read-along podcast and not reading along, only because I've read the Lord of the Rings like 6 times. And I actually really enjoy that. That's actually why we started this one. So, yeah. Okay, command system, Terminus. So that's quite a portentous name.
I feel like it's nearly at the end.
It's the end of some things, isn't it? Okay, what are we going to do right now, Sharon?
So you are going to have 30 seconds to summarise the book thus far.
Okay.
And I count you in.
Yep,
3,
sure.
2, 1, go.
So there's a war in space. On one side are giant lizards, which aren't very like us, but they are alive. And on the other side is these giant supercomputers that keep humans as pets. One of the artificial intelligences, a mind, has gone missing, and both sides in the war are trying to get it. And they've hired a bunch of different human proxies to try and get it. And they're all stuck on this Shah's world, which is owned by a intergalactic intelligence, and they're fighting to try and get the mind.
Woo! Good job. Good job. All right. So...
Okay, so now you are going to do a quick 30-second attempt at... I don't think you've ever succeeded.
I've not succeeded, no.
So
I don't prepare for them, is the problem.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to do a high-speed run through the chapter before we discuss in detail.
Yep.
Okay, and your time starts in 3, 2, 1.
Our band of brothers is trying to get the train going, and they sort of split up, and Zoxal's with Avager, and then Quellanon just gets the train going, and it comes crashing towards them, and Wobson and Yalson are killed, and the mine's there, don't know where it is. Balvader survives with Horza, and then there's a big fight, and Balvader and Horza survive, and he can't remember his name, bringing us back to something early in the book, and that's it.
Wow.
Was that a good one?
No, you really... I mean, you got it done in time, but you glossed over some important things.
Like what?
Horza died.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know that he's dead.
Yalson died?
I said Yalson died.
Okay.
Horse's death, though, is... Oh, no, it's not. Oh, I think we need to cut that.
I think that's perfect. I think we're going to keep going with that.
I literally, really got through the last bit of the chapter real fast this evening.
Okay. All right, let's...
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. I'm mind blown.
Okay. All right, let's...
I thought she ran off to get the medical kit and then was coming back.
Yeah, those are all things you do when someone dies. Okay, moving on. So the story starts as... This chapter starts as quite a lot of chapters have done, possibly all of the command system chapters have done, with Zoxal telling a story.
Yes. Sorry, I'm still a little... We'll get to it, I guess, whether he dies or not.
Okay. He's deader than Disco.
I'm not sure about that. He's talking at the end.
He's anyway, let's get
Okay,
going.
yeah.
So, come back.
Yeah,
Come back
okay, sorry, I'm very disturbed. This is quite a shift in the narrative that I wasn't... This is a bit of a twister. I mean, what's going to happen next book? I guess it's all about Balvader. It's quite shocking.
You will not meet any characters from this book in the next book.
No Balvader?
No.
I've got to start again.
Well, you still got the culture and the galaxy, but it's a totally different story.
Woo!
There are one, maybe two characters who recur in these books, but they're very few and far between.
Oh, so I've got to start with a new set every time?
Yeah.
So we could have just really been reading any book in the series at any time.
Well, that's a matter of considerable debate. I actually reckon there is a consistent narrative, and things in later books can only happen after things that happen in earlier books. But there are lots of people, they're wrong, but there are many of them, who think that the books aren't actually in any particular order.
Right.
And probably of our listeners, that's probably split around 50-50.
There's a lot that I've just had to come to grips with then. A lot.
Can we get back to the start of the chapter?
Yep, okay, I'll just flick it back in my book to the beginning. Okay, go.
Okay, so Zoxal is telling another story. And I really felt that we've learned a lot about adherence through Zoxal's stories.
We definitely have. And he kind of uses it as like a bit of a disarming technique.
Yes.
Because it's a little bit like walking through the forest listening to a story.
Yeah. Once you've been listened to someone's stories that many times, you start to feel like you know them and you're friends with them. And
it distracts them.
Oh, and it's worked an absolute treat on Avager, all these stories.
Oh no, poor Avager.
Oh, he's a bit of a bugger.
Yeah, but I don't really feel like he needed to be...
Anyway,
he gets his head crushed.
Well, he's not alone in that in this episode.
At least I got that one right.
I did like the line where Zoxal's saying... well, actually, Avager actually takes an interest in the story, saying, "Oh, what were these aliens that you fought called?" And Zoxal says, I believe they were called the Fadge. Never heard of them, Avager said. No, you wouldn't have, Zoxal felt. We annihilated them. Which is very, very endearing. Yeah, I like that bit.
It is very endearing.
Yes.
What did you think about the sort of throwback with Horza squashing the bug?
And Belvader's line was like, well, that was one way of proving its innocence.
Yeah. It's like a bit of a Salem witch trial.
Yeah, witch burning. Yeah. Well, no, it's actually a bug. Yeah. And on a planet where there's almost no living things and life's just hanging on by a thread.
But there is a lot of referencing back in this chapter to earlier events, like heaps.
Very much so. Yep. Yes, it's all quite complex. Well, everything in this chapter is complex. I think it's fair to say.
So complex I didn't even realise the main character died.
You honestly thought he was going to be in the next book? That's so sweet.
I was waiting for him to come up in the little appendices chapter that we haven't read.
Okay, cool. So, they're all asking around in the train station again. It feels like we've literally spent months of our lives asking around in the train station.
Yeah.
Yes, and I do love, Avager saying, "Oh, it's not my war," and Zoxal being, sensible. I wish more humans would realise what is and what is not theirs, especially regarding wars. But, in this, Zoxal really just views the culture and humans as being the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is obviously the Adherents' huge mistake in starting this war in thinking that the pets were the actual society.
Do you think he reviews them as the same thing, though, or just not Adherents?
Well, there's a big part of just not adherence, but he's definitely in this case talking about Avager being a sensible human in a way that the culture humans are not.
Yeah, that is true, yeah.
Conflating them. Yes, and, finally the train... Now, one thing in your recap, there are two different trains.
Sorry, I did know that.
Okay,
but,
just checking.
I did know there was two different trains. The one that Wobslin's trying to start.
Yes.
And then the one that
Quarrenol's
on.
Yes.
And, he's still pretty roughed up.
Well, he's literally
but
dying.
He seems to get a bit of a spring in his step because he realises that
it's all happening. I've pulled it off.
And I love Zoxal. He's like, oh, that bastard, he's got him. When does he realises, he's like, yes.
Thank you, brother. Although, there's a funny little line here saying, Quarrenol getting the train going. Before he found the circuit breaker on the collision brake, he found the lights. And I question. I mean, I know they're geniuses and everything. As a human, I would struggle to find the circuit breaker on a collision brake on a train.
Yeah, but you're not an Adiran.
And this is a train made by a completely alien civilization to me. I don't understand how they lay out their circuit boards.
It also seems a little fanciful that Querinol gets the train going completely rooted. Like, he's so badly injured. But Wubslan, who is an engineer...
But the Adirans had been playing with it for days.
That's true, but by this point, Wubslan has also been playing with it for quite some time.
Adirans are smarter than humans, we've established.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think... Are they really smarter? I thought they were just stronger.
No, they're much smarter too. Adirans are almost as smart as culture minds.
Where's there evidence of that?
I'm
not saying it's not
true. The fact that the Adirans are even fighting culture minds and humans are just their pets, and the Adirans have been winning the war up until now, suggests they're incredibly smart because they don't have any computers. Well, they don't have any artificial intelligences. So
I just thought that was brute force.
You've still got to assemble your brute force across the vastness of space.
True.
Yes. And then the dying of this Idera just goes on and on. Like, he could not estimate how far he had to go. He had started it off. He had done his best. No more finally could be asked of him.
Yeah, he does. He does go on for quite a while.
I mean, I do love that whole duty thing. What more can be asked of me? No, I could do a little bit more. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And Anaha Closp, who we'll get to hero of the chapter, but he's got to be a contender.
He's definitely a contender. The whole way through, he's just really working it for the team.
So there's a good line where Anaha Closp is looking at the trains and Yelson's radioing him saying, "What are you up to?" And he's saying, "I'm taking a good look through this antiquated collection of rolling stock. I do believe these trains may actually be older than your ship."
Is that right after Yelson says, "Don't wet your pants"? Or is that to Wubslan, I think, maybe?
I can't see that bit.
I think it is. I think it was around that time.
Yeah, that's
There's a bit of banter.
There's a bit of banter. And then Anaha Closp having a sulk again. "Ordered back, told to return. Like it was a slave. One of the Adirans Medjol. As though it was a machine. Let them wait a little." I love the drama, because we pretty much established last chapter that the mind was hiding in the reactor compartment of the train. And, just the getting closer, getting further away, trying to get in. How do I do this?
Yeah.
Yes. And Zoxal trying to get some biological solidarity, saying to Avager, "Unpleasant little machine, that." Yes. And at what point did you catch on about what was happening with the sound?
Well, you definitely catch on with the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So that was when I definitely caught on what was happening.
Okay. Yeah. Because I thought it was really clever that the thing they did with Anaha Closp being like, I can hear some noises. And then he communicated with them on the command deck of the train and couldn't hear the noises in their sides. It's like, it must just be something around here. And it's only at the very end he's like, wait a minute, I'm communicating on human frequencies and it's not the microphones up there aren't transmitting their sounds to me in these other frequencies. So I like the way that unfolded, and there's probably maybe 4 clues about what's happening, so even if you're a bit slow on the uptake...
You do already know, though, what's happening, because he got the train started.
You know the train's going, but in terms of how close it is, and I just thought it was really well constructed.
I actually thought it was a really great, narrative tool to create the tension.
Build the tension, yeah.
Or build the tension. Even though... Because I knew it was happening. I knew the train was going to appear.
Yeah.
But you really are like, this thing is really going to appear real soon.
Yeah. It's getting closer and closer and closer. The wind keeps getting stronger and stronger.
They don't know, which is really cool.
Yeah. Or they're, willfully ignoring they keep, even in the previous chapter, little blinking lights were starting to go off. And
like Horza has that line, I don't have it in front of me, but where he's like, you're trying to think about all the possible things that could happen, the multitude of data, and you might have missed something, and, like, he's, like, literally missed this. Like, this piece of data is available to him that breeze is there, and he misses it.
It's because he's looking at other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, which...
So he even knows he's missing something. You're like, you're missing it, dude!
But even with the reactor core, he's like, is there enough room for a mine to hide in there? Blob's something, I wouldn't have thought so. And Balveda getting more and more narky, saying to Horza, you're getting very trusting, Horza, letting the drone do your hunting for you.
They have this quite, like these moments where, I mean, she starts to say, I think I'm starting to feel like one of the team. And he starts to get sort of empathetic for her, where he's like, well, maybe the only reason I don't like the culture is, you know, just because that's what side I've been on the adherence side for so long. And he starts to sort of see it from her perspective. Maybe they're not all that bad.
I mean, going back to the first chapter, Horza quite likes Balveda personally.
Yeah. So they kind of have these like moments where they like almost connect on this level where they're like the same.
Yeah.
But they don't quite like make it.
I mean, it is quite usual in these conflicts for agents in the field to end up having more in common with each other than they do with the teams they come from. You know, which is always why you need to keep bringing them back and checking the indoctrination's going.
And I mean, obviously, at the end, they demonstrate allegiance to each other because he saves her.
Ooh, jumping ahead.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Finally, Anahakos realises why he's not hearing the right things. And he's still bitching and moaning, though. You know, of course I end up doing all the work. I might have known. Basically what I'm doing for that bastard is hunting down another machine. I ought to have my circuits tested. I've a good mind not to tell him, even if I do find the mine somewhere. That'll teach him. So we keep getting the interspersal with Zoxal talking and Avager ignoring him. And, I mean, any soldier of fortune... it's always hard to find good guards. And they probably should have, if they'd thought about it more, be rotating who was responsible for looking after Zoxal rather than leaving one person to do it.
Well, especially because Avager is not the most loyal. Although, I don't know if Horza really knows that, but, you know, he's like, I'm a prisoner myself.
Yeah, but there's also just even if that hadn't been the case, if you keep having the same person, they fall into routines.
Yeah.
And that can be exploited. Whereas if you'd been rotating whoever was guarding Zoxal, it would have been much harder for Zoxal to build up patterns that he could exploit.
But Horza's got no real choice, though, because he's not going to leave Yalson there with his baby. He's not going to put Wobson there because he's the engineer trying to get the train going. He can't put Balveda there. So he's, like, very...
Yeah, his choices are limited, but if he'd rotated everyone through, including himself...
He should have rotated himself.
Things would have gone much better for all of them.
Yeah.
What do you think of Avager's dreams for the future?
His dreams for the future?
Yeah. He would buy an island. Sorry, how it goes. He would buy some land, an island on a knife-safe planet somewhere. He'd have some retro-aging done and raise some sort of expensive racing animals. And he'd get to know the better-off people through his connections. Or he'd get somebody else to do all the hard work. With money, you could do that. You could do anything.
Yeah, he's a bit of a douche, isn't he? Although, you know, sounds pretty good to me.
I love the idea of expensive racing animals and a better class of people.
Some retro-aging. Hello, ladies.
Although it's a bit like the old trope that when someone starts talking about retirement, you know they're about to get it.
Yeah, that's true. Like in the buddy cop movies.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah. So then we get some interesting stuff with the alarms that are in the system and not being set up for human ears, so the Adherent can hear them. But then he's like, "Oh, the humans can't hear this. These alarms going off." Which...
But weirdly, why would they be set up for Adherent ears?
Well, they're not. That it's just the Adherents have broader spectrum hearing.
Yeah, but why wouldn't they be set up for human ears? I mean,
well, they weren't built for humans.
Was it Changes Station?
No, the station was Changes, but the original inhabitants who built the command system were a different group yet again. He's played a lot of games here with audible audio spectrum, You can actually do some really cool stuff with visible light spectrums and how different aliens would see in infrared or ultraviolet or even in radar waves. And anyway, that's a book for someone else to write, or maybe they haven't. I just don't know about it. But
I don't think I'm going to read that one.
It'd be a really weird book. Yeah. The lovely evocative description of the oncoming train. The train was a long articulated shell in some gigantic gun, a metal scream in a vast throat. I reckon he spent a while on that sentence.
I would agree, yes.
It's also funny how he's changed his descriptions of the train, because when they're stationary, they're like giant insects, giant centipedes, that sort of thing. But when it's at speed, it's a totally different beast. And
I mean, it's going fast. It's 190 kilometres an hour.
There you go.
That is what they say, isn't it? I think they do.
It's definitely going fast by the time it gets there. Although
it was a very specific number. I wonder if it'd been converted from miles. Probably not, because he's British, right? So he's metric.
Yeah.
Like although a sensible person.
The British do all their speed limits in miles.
It's weird. What they went halfway. Why not the full way?
Send your answers on a postcard too. Then there's some thoughts by Hauser on the nature of machines. Only a machine could literally do that, just to be so in tune with what was going on that you thought automatically of all the important and potentially important things and ignored the rest. And then that bit you were talking about, Hauser realised his own obsessive drive never to make a mistake, always to think of everything, was not so unlike the fetishistic urge which he so despised in the culture, coming to resemble your enemies. Which is always the nature of these conflicts, is that the people in power have to study the enemies so intensively and learn how they think that, again, have that whole crossing over of which side are you actually on. And, you look at the way but the end of World War II merged into the Cold War, and the thinking of elites in the security state all got very weird. So finally we get to the point, the humans notice.
Yes.
The train's coming into the station.
It was way too late by the time they noticed.
Way too late. And poor old Wobsland being like, I know what I'm doing. You get off, I'll get it moving. You'll see.
I mean, look, I got to give the dude credit. He really, that would have been a kick-ass move if he had been successful.
Yeah, but he was not.
He was
He
not.
did not know what he was doing. He could not do what he was trying to do. And he literally copped a nuclear train up his ass.
He did. Do you think it's a nuclear train?
Yeah, they're nuclear powered.
How do you know? Do they say it?
They talk about the reactor all the time.
Oh, so can a reactor be only nuclear?
They talk about it being a nuclear reactor. That's why it was messing with the mass sensors.
Well, I don't do science, so I thought it could be some other sort of like...
No, it's definitely a nuclear reactor. Although, if we're going to be completist on this, the train circuits are electrified and the nuclear reactors are backup power for these trains. Which is why Hauser should have noticed the power draw of the other train starting, which was showing up on the...
He really missed a lot of data.
Yeah. Well, flashing lights in alien languages. And the mind being, that vibration, it's a train, another train's coming, what have these idiots done? I have to get out! And finally, the big firefight starts with the humans trying to get out of the train while Zoxal's shooting at them.
Yes.
And
we didn't really talk about Ravager's head getting crushed, which
okay.
I was like, I audibly went, oh!
Oh, okay.
Don't know why, it just seemed harsh.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anyway, so Zoxal got free.
Yes. And then the mine gets free. A great flat cork of thick wall tipping down to the station floor. A small dark shape dashed from the broken hatch, and from that great circular hole nearby a silver point came, swelling quickly to a fat, bright, reflecting ovoid as the wall section hit the platform. The drone was through the hair, and Balveda started forward along the ramp. There it is, Yelson screamed. So the mine sort of... Yeah, it's a bit ineffable what the mind actually thinks to do. So it gets out of the train and then it rolls around and then it gets still for a while.
I still don't know how it doesn't get destroyed, but...
It's very tough.
Yeah. I mean, because Yalson really takes a beating.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's... Again, she's definitely losing her sense. There's a moment where she could have ducked for cover and she kept going. But the suit's been holding up until that point. But obviously suits can only take so much damage before the laser beams get through. We've got the moment of Yalson's passing here. This time, her suit armour could soak up no more energy. It gave way, the laser fire bursting through like lightning all over the woman's body, throwing her into the air, blowing her arms out, kicking her legs from under her, jerking her like a doll caught in the fist of an angry child, and throwing a bright crimson cloud from her chest and abdomen.
Yep, she's gone.
Yeah.
I think Babe's gone too.
The description of abdomen was just making sure we knew the baby was definitely catching it.
Yeah.
Yes. And then the train hit. Boom. And then there's a lot of destruction description and Wobsland getting...
Does Horsa see this? He knows she's gone. Yeah,
Horsa, this is my favourite bit in the chapter, actually. Horsa goes so angry. He goes onto beast mode and is shooting so accurately and moving so aggressively. Zoxal, the big tough Adiran, runs in fear.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Horsa is so wrathful that the Adiran Special Forces operative loses his courage and runs away.
Yeah, because I didn't really think about it like that, because I was thinking more of Zoxal as being like kind of injured and having his moment where he's finally free. But yeah, he's actually not really that injured, is he?
He's not as injured as he was making out.
Yeah.
But he definitely starts running away from Horsa because Horsa is coming at him so hard.
Yeah, and he says something about that he was gonna... Yeah, he says he knows that he's basically pissed him off to the point where he's gonna avenge Yalson's death.
Yeah, anyway.
Because he talks about keeping him alive, I think, or thinking about... I can't remember, but...
Anyway, this is where it starts to get really confusing, but, Beast Mode Horsa is obviously a terrifying thing. He's literally the scariest thing on the planet at this point.
Sorry for my little coughs throughout. Have had COVID last week. Would not recommend.
I wonder what percentage of our listeners have already had. Avager getting his skull crushed only happens at this point.
You're right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Anyway, he does get his skull crushed.
And then the first of our heroics by Unaha Kloss. Unaha Kloss rammed forward right at the Adiran's head, which is the second time he's done that to Zoxal. Because he did it in the previous chapter. Way back a bit. Zoxal caught the machine in one hand and slammed it into the control console, smashing screens and light panels in a fury of sparks and acrid smoke. Unaha Kloss stayed there, jammed halfway into the fused and spluttering switch assembly, smoke pouring out from around it. And then Anaha's view of the Adiran. Filthy bastard. You walking cell menagerie.
Cell menagerie is a good line.
I do like that as an insult from, the machines to, organic creatures. The names they'll call us, Sheridan. And then this line, the Adiran had made the same mistake about Horsa that his whole species had made about the culture. They were not that soft after all. Humans could be just as hard and determined and merciless as any Adiran, given the right encouragement. Did that make you feel proud as a human or depressed?
Well, I mean, it's this sort of whole thing that we have as humans where, there's so much focus on difference, but really everyone's kind of got the same drivers. Is that what he's trying to get at?
I think from him it's admiration, because Adirans regard themselves as so superior to everything else. And it's quite a moment of enlightenment for Zoxal. I mean, obviously he's been scared into running away from Horsa, which must have been...
But there's multiple points in this chapter where all of the different, for lack of a better word, races realise that they're actually more similar than perhaps different.
Yeah. There is that. Yes.
So it's like a little,
What did you think about Horsa rescuing Valveda?
Well, it didn't really surprise me, to be honest, because he has, from the very beginning, had at least a respect for her.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, though, also, she is useful to him.
Yep.
At this point, because he's got to get out.
Yep.
But, yeah, like, I don't know, what did you think?
I just really liked the way you thought he'd actually left her there. Hanging by,
Yeah.
you know, and then he did come
Turns
back.
around, yeah.
And then the portentous little bit here.
Well, she does that too with the going off to get the medical kit.
Yeah, that's
although I guess you kind of know she's doing it.
Yeah, that's post-crisis as well.
Yeah.
There is a little thing here that I've only noticed on closer reading where Horses pulled her up onto the gantry and Balveda curled up, her numbed arm going to the broken one towards it but not touching it. She coughed and put her hand to her mouth, feeling inside, spluttering. She spat out a tooth.
Oh, yeah, didn't you notice that? But can we actually also talk about the cold move by Zoxal snapping her arm?
Yes.
That was harsh.
Yeah, it was brutal, but it was the sort of thing we'd expect from him.
Yeah, but why didn't you just kill her?
Well, because he wanted to distract Horsa enough so that Horsa rescues her instead of chasing him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, alright.
He's trying to slow Horsa down. And leaving her there in broken distress is how he does that.
But that was cool. Because we've been waiting from chapter 5 or 6 or something for her to produce this culture weapon that Horsa has always kind of known was there.
Yes.
He's always been.
You're giving away that's the tooth. It. We haven't got there yet, but yes.
Oh, sorry.
It's in the tooth.
It's in the tooth.
It's in the tooth. She spat out the tooth. And it's coming. Another her closp insult. You animal. And finally we get the big, big, what do you call this? Final moment of conflict.
Climax?
The climax, that's it. Anaha Closp has tried and Zoxal is about to be triumphant and then Zoxal's midriff lit up like the sun. The Adiran's lower torso was blown apart, blasted from his hips by 100 tiny explosions. His chest, arms and head were blown up and back. And so it's this gun that Balveda's produced out of the tooth.
Sounds like a weird friggin' gun.
I think it's firing antimatter.
Yeah, right.
Which is why all the little bits that come in contact with Zoxal blow up. And it's also would explain why it's only got a couple of shots, and it worked quite well with something that's super compressed, and then the gun unfolds into a framework that just plinks the bits of antimatter at him. But yeah, cinematic. This would have been a fantastic moment to see on the telly.
Yeah, it would have.
Yeah.
Cinema.
Poor Unaha Closp is lost the power of speech.
Surprising for him, he's very wordy.
Just blah 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 ha ha. Yeah, which just sounds like a faulty sound card chip of the 1980s. And how did that all make you feel, Sheridan?
Oh, well, it's very dramatic. I was hoping Zoxal would die, which he did.
Finally.
I kind of did grow to like him a bit, but he was a douche.
This is more anyone can look this up. There's this larger-than-life character in Australia whose defamation trial's just finished, Ben Robert-Smith, who's a former Special Air Service corporal and Victoria Cross recipient. And I just, with what we've heard about Ben Robert-Smith's activities in Afghanistan in recent years and in his defamation trial, I just felt he was a very close fit for Zoxal.
That is actually quite an amusing analogy.
A
big, giant, tall, long-limbed
Yeah.
I mean, look, you can't imagine Ben Robert Smith with 2 extra arms.
Yeah, but
we better be careful though here, because he doesn't shy away from that defamation.
Well, we're just saying it's the super competitive super soldier and utterly ruthless, which I'm going here. I think he's okay with it. Utterly,
I think we need to move into the this is definitely satire. The only exemption under Australian defamation law.
Yeah. Commentary. Yeah.
I was joking.
Anyway, we start to get the final little throwbacks. Horza starts using his incantation about the Jamoti, which was right there in the first chapter.
Jamoti?
Yeah. He's when that mantra he was using to try and keep himself alive in the sewer cell.
Oh.
It started with the Jamoti of whatever planet.
Right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And I kind of feel for Balvader because Horza's talking nonsense and Anaha Closp is floating around, bumping into things and talking gibberish. And
I'm really sorry, but I do not think it's clear he's dead.
Okay.
So, because you've got Unaha Closp just going bala 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 the whole time.
Yeah.
And then his eyes open wide.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks in horror, and he
Mm-hmm.
grabs Balvader.
A terrible clawing grip, yeah.
And he's like, "My name," he moaned, an anguish in his voice even more awful than that on his face. "What's my name?"
Mm-hmm.
And Unaha Closp says, "Bala, bala, bala."
Mm-hmm.
And then Balvader tells him his name, and of course there's been this reoccurring dream and issue he's had about not knowing his name.
Alright, here's the line. The man's grip fell away, the terror ebbed from his face. He relaxed, eyes closing again, mouth almost smiling. Ah, yes, of course.
Well, you could just be chilled out because he knows what his name is. That's what I honestly thought. Like, he's like, "Oh, sweet, I know my name now. I can just, chill out here and, wait for, to be rescued." I think that is very ambiguous. And because I was feeling like a bit of an idiot for not knowing this coming in. And it was a bit embarrassing. And I think, I'm reading this down, I think I'm justifiable in thinking that this is a little ambiguous.
The man's grip fell away, the terror ebbed from his face.
Yeah,
He relaxed.
He's just relaxed. He's just taking a chill. Look, he's smiling.
Yeah,
He's just like, yeah.
This is like when the dog goes away to the farm, isn't it?
I actually thought I was actually more worried about Unaha Closp dying. I'm debating whether he's dead.
Okay, well, we'll all be revealed next chapter. So Sheridan's big prediction for chapter 14 is that Horza is alive.
I'm predicting it's
and it turns out Yalson's actually fine too. And Horza and
No,
Yalson...
Yalson I know is dead. Yalson is dead. But, I think it's more like a little memorial for Unaha Closp that's going to happen next chapter.
Alright, any other predictions for next chapter?
I feel like this is a bait and switch. I think you're setting me up. Although I know you're not, because that would have been way too clever the way you did it.
Yeah, I'm just not that clever. Okay.
Although maybe you are, because it does rely on you knowing that I can be a bit daft.
Anyway, predictions for next chapter.
Oh, I'm completely thrown.
Okay.
I mean, I think maybe Balvader goes and buries Horza.
Could be.
The mind,
That's
maybe.
it.
I think I will end with the mind, because we started with the mind.
They give the mind a shovel.
The mind will, because we started the book with the mind.
Yep.
So we'll end with the mind.
Very interesting. Okay, who's your MVP for this chapter?
I would definitely have said Unaha Closp, but now, how many of them? There's too many to choose from. I mean, have I ever given Horza the MVP?
Yeah, I think you have.
Well, I mean, I think I might have to give it to him.
Well, just because he...
well, I'm not going to have another chance.
Just because he beast-moded Zoxal.
Yeah, and they've died. Apparently, although debatable.
All right, okay. I'm going to give mine to Anaha Closp. That brave little drone. Although, it should be noted, he's conflicted as to whether he wants to help the mind or the humans, but he definitely doesn't want to help the Aderan.
That's true.
loyalties clear up when it's Endearance come on the scene. Okay, so next episode, which is going to be probably in the same sort of time frame as usual for us, we are going to cover both the final 14 Consider Phlebas and the appendices.
How long are these appendices?
They're not that long.
Oh, right. I thought it might have been a Lord of the Rings style thing where they go for like a third of the book.
It's like 4% of the book. So it's quite small. Anyway, so folks, we're going to read all the way to the end of the book for the next episode. And then you'll need to get yourself a copy of Player of Games if you're continuing the journey with us. But for now, I'd like to thank everyone who puts up with our erratic publishing schedule and still listens. It's really awesome to see how many of you there are.
It is.
And
I did have COVID this time. I feel that's a pretty good excuse.
For 1 week, yeah.
No, the COVID took 2 weeks of my life. It was big. I would not recommend folks get those vaccines. I've got 4 of them and it didn't do much. Which means you should definitely get them. Because it could have been way
worse. 4
worse.
vaccines and the disease would have been a lot worse.
It could have been. I probably would have been in hospital on a ventilator.
Yes. Okay, on that note, we will bid you all adieu for tonight. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back in a few weeks to finish up Consider Phlebas and then on to the Player of Games.
Woo!